You think you know the sound of your own home. The creak of the third stair, the hum of the refrigerator, the way the morning light falls across the kitchen table. But there are other sounds. Sounds you don't hear until it's too late. The sound of a secret rotting in the dark. The sound of a lie so big it has its own heartbeat. My name is Clara Evans, and that whispered phone call was the moment my life, my entire picture of the last 20 years, was torn in half. If you're listening to this and you believe that the foundation of your life is solid, then please listen closely. My story is a warning, and if you want to hear the whole shocking truth, I hope you'll subscribe. What I uncovered in my own home, it's something no person should ever have to face. It started on a Tuesday. I had woken up with a fierce determination to clean the house from top to bottom. My husband, David, was away on a 3-day business trip. Another one. And the silence in our spacious 2-story home on the outskirts of Hartford was starting to feel heavy, accusatory. David and we'd been drifting. The easy laughter of our early years had been replaced by a polite, careful distance. He was a successful architect, always buried in blueprints, and I was just the curator of our quiet life. But that day, I wanted to scrub away the stillness. I wanted to make the house shine, to maybe somehow remind us both of what we used to be. I was on my hands and knees, attacking a scuff mark on the polished hallway floor, when my phone vibrated. It was my oldest friend, Sarah, calling from Seattle. She was passing through for a single night, a layover on her way to London. Could we meet? My heart leapt. Sarah was a burst of fresh air, a connection to a time before the quiet had set in. But the house, it was a disaster. There was no way I could leave it. And then I remembered Maria. Maria was a woman in her late 40s who lived a few streets over. She'd fallen on hard times after her divorce and cleaned houses to support her 2 teenagers. She was quiet, reliable, and had a kind, tired smile that I trusted. I called her, and she agreed immediately, grateful for the last-minute work. I gave her the key, a list of instructions. The hardwood floors needed a specific cleaner, David's study was strictly off-limits, and I rushed out to meet Sarah. We met at a small Italian restaurant, and for 2 hours, I forgot about the dust and the distance. We laughed, we cried, we remembered who we were at 20. It was a balm for my soul. And then, my phone rang. It was Maria. I smiled, expecting her to tell me she was finished. But her voice wasn't the soft, calm tone I knew. It was a strained, terrified whisper. The kind that bypasses your ears and goes straight to your primal brain. "Mrs. Clara?" she breathed. Is there anyone else in the house?" A cold trickle of fear ran down my spine. I stood up from the table, my chair scraping loudly. Sarah looked at me, her smile vanishing. "No, Maria," I said, trying to sound calm. "It's just you. David's away. I'm out." "Why?" There was a choked sob on the other end of the line. I could hear her ragged breathing. There's a woman upstairs in the attic." The attic. We never used the attic. It was a cramped, unfinished space full of Christmas decorations and old baby clothes from when my sister's kids visited. The door was always locked. David kept the key. "Maria, that's impossible," I said, my voice tight. "The attic is locked. You must be hearing things from the neighbors." "No," she hissed, her terror sharp and real. "I was vacuuming the hallway. I heard a noise, a banging. It was coming from the attic door. I went closer and I heard her, a woman's voice. She was screaming." My blood ran cold. "Screaming what?" Maria's voice dropped to a barely audible whisper. She was screaming a name over and over. "David, David, let me out." The world tilted. The noise of the restaurant faded into a dull roar. "David, my David, get out," I commanded, my own voice shaking now. Get out of the house right now, Maria. Go to your car, lock the doors, and call the police. I'm calling them now. I'm on my way. I didn't wait for her response. I hung up, my hands trembling so violently I could barely dial 911. I stammered out the address to the dispatcher, my words tumbling over each other. There's a woman trapped in my attic. My cleaning lady heard her. My husband's name. Sarah drove me home, her face pale with worry. I tried calling David. No answer. It went straight to voicemail. Of course. He was probably in a meeting or on a plane. The logical explanations felt flimsy, pathetic against the raw terror in Maria's voice. The 20-minute drive felt like an eternity. When we screeched into my driveway, 2 police cruisers were already there, their lights painting the quiet suburban street in frantic flashes of red and blue. Maria was huddled on my front porch, a uniformed officer standing with her. She was crying. I ran to her. Maria, are you okay? What happened? Before she could answer, the front door opened and 2 more officers emerged. One was a tall, serious-looking sergeant. The other was a younger female officer. Mrs. Evans, the sergeant said, I'm Sergeant Miller. We've conducted a search of the premises. My heart was hammering against my ribs. Did you find her? The woman? He shook his head, his expression unreadable. There's no one here, ma'am. We checked every room, every closet. The attic door was locked. We had to force it open. The space is empty. Empty? The word felt hollow, ridiculous. But she heard her. She heard banging, screaming. The female officer stepped forward, her voice kinder. The attic is full of old pipes, ma'am. When the heat kicks on, the metal expands and can make loud banging noises. It can sound alarming if you're not used to it. I stared at them, then at Maria. She was shaking her head, her eyes wide with a conviction that cut through my own rising doubt. I know what I heard, she whispered. It was a voice, a woman's voice. She was screaming for David. Just then, my phone rang. It was David. Relief, cold and sharp, flooded through me. David, thank God! Where are you? I just landed, honey. What's going on? I have 10 missed calls from you and a voicemail from the police. I walked a few paces away, my back to the officers, and poured out the story in a frantic, hushed torrent. And Maria heard a woman screaming your name from the attic, David. The police are here. They say it's empty, but... Clara, stop. His voice was calm. Too calm. It was the voice he used to soothe a nervous client. It's the pipes. I've told you about that noise before. It sounds like someone hitting the radiator with a hammer. And as for a voice, he let out a soft, dismissive chuckle. Maria's a good woman, but she's imaginative. She was probably listening to a true crime podcast on her headphones and got spooked. The mind plays tricks. His explanation was so smooth, so logical. The pipes, a podcast. It made sense. It should have made sense, but it didn't. It felt like a blanket being thrown over a fire, smothering the truth. I apologized to the officers, my face burning with a mixture of embarrassment and a stubborn, gnawing fear. I paid Maria double and assured her I believed her, though I could see the doubt in the officer's eyes. Sarah stayed with me until I calmed down, but when she left, the silence in the house was louder than ever. I stood at the bottom of the stairs, looking up at the splintered frame around the attic door. The police had broken the lock. A part of me, the part that had been married to David for 20 years, wanted to believe him, to accept the rational explanation and move on. But the other part, the part that had heard the sheer, undiluted terror in Maria's whisper, knew better. I climbed at the stairs, my legs feeling like lead. The attic was exactly as the police had described it. Dusty, cluttered, and utterly, completely empty of any living soul. Old suitcases, a dismantled crib, boxes labeled Xmas. I walked to the center of the room, the floorboards creaking under my weight. The air was stale and cold, and then I saw it. Tucked behind a large rolled-up carpet, half hidden in the shadows, was a small, square hatch in the floor, a subfloor compartment. I'd never noticed it before. The dust around it was disturbed. My heart started to pound again. I knelt down, my fingers finding a small recessed handle. I pulled. It was heavy, but it opened. The space inside was dark, about the size of a small closet, and it wasn't empty. There was a thin, dirty mattress, a bottle of water, half full, a protein bar wrapper, and tucked into the corner, a small leather-bound journal. I reached in with a trembling hand and picked up the journal. The cover was soft with age. I opened it. The first page was filled with a delicate, feminine handwriting, and at the top, a name was written in elegant cursive, Isabel, and a date, from 22 years ago. My blood ran cold. I started to read. The entries were sporadic, filled with passion, then fear, then a deep, chilling despair. It was the diary of a young woman, an artist named Isabel, who had fallen deeply in love with a man named David. My David. She wrote about their secret meetings, his promises, the house he was building for them. She wrote about the day he told her he was married. To me, the entries became darker. He promised he would leave me, she wrote. He said it was just a matter of time. He bought her this house, our house, telling her it was theirs. And then she wrote the words that made my soul freeze. I'm pregnant. I told David today. He was so angry. He said it complicated everything. He said Clara would never give him a divorce. He told me I had to get rid of it. I refused. I've never seen him like this. He's changed. He locked me in the attic today. He said it was for my own good, to calm down. I'm so scared. The diary ended there. The last page was torn. I sat back on my heels, the journal feeling like a block of ice in my hands. Isabel, pregnant, locked in my attic 22 years ago, the year we moved into this house. The pieces, the horrible, monstrous pieces began to snap together. David's constant business trips, his possessiveness over the house, his refusal to ever move, the locked attic. Maria hadn't heard a ghost. She hadn't heard pipes. She had heard an echo, a memory, trapped in the walls of this house. Or something else. The truth was a physical blow. I stumbled out of the attic, down the stairs, and into the bathroom, where I was violently sick. My husband wasn't just a liar. He was a monster. He had imprisoned a woman here, a woman who was carrying his child. What had he done with her? The question screamed in my head. I had to know. I couldn't confront him yet. He would lie, he would explain it away, he would make me doubt my own sanity. I needed proof. Irrefutable proof. I spent the next 2 days in a haunted daze, pretending everything was normal when David returned. I was an actress in my own life, playing the part of Clara, the dutiful, slightly scatterbrained wife. But inside, I was a detective, a hunter. I watched his every move. I listened to every word. I remembered the name of the construction company he used back then, Evans and Sons. Old man Evans had retired, but his son, Michael, had taken over. I went to see him under the guise of wanting to look at old blueprints for a potential renovation. Michael, a jovial man in his 50s, was happy to help. "Sure, I remember this house," he said, pulling out a large rolled document. "Your husband was so hands-on, had us change the plans last minute to add that reinforced storage space in the attic. Said he had some valuable architectural models he needed to keep safe." Reinforced storage. The subfloor compartment. My hands were sweating. Did he ever have any other work done? Maybe a separate property around the same time? Michael frowned, thinking, "You know, it's funny you should ask. He did. Out at the old Miller place on the edge of Blackwood Forest. Bought it for a song. Had us do a quick job, just securing it, really. Boarding up windows, reinforcing the basement door. He said it was for a client, an investment property. We finished the job, but I heard he never sold it. Still owns it, I think." The Miller place. An isolated, direct-licked house on the outskirts of town. A place to hide something. or someone. My heart was a wild drum in my chest. This was it. I knew it. I called the police, but what would I say? Hello, I think my husband might have imprisoned his pregnant girlfriend here 22 years ago based on a diary I found? They would think I was insane. I had to go in. I used a heavy rock from the garden and smashed the window next to the back door, reaching in to unlock it. The smell that hit me was a mixture of damp, decay, and something else, something faintly chemical like old cleaning supplies. The house was a tomb. Dust sheets covered furniture, and the floor was littered with debris. I moved through the rooms, my flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. Nothing, just decay. Then I found the basement door. It was reinforced with steel, just as Michael had said, and it was locked with a heavy, modern padlock. Desperation gave me strength. I found a rusted tire iron in the garage and wedged it into the hasp, throwing my whole weight against it. With a screech of protesting metal, the lock broke. I pulled the door open. A wave of cold, damp air washed over me. I shone my light down the steep, concrete stairs. And I saw her. Not a ghost. A woman, real and flesh and blood. She was sitting on a cot, wrapped in a blanket, her face pale and lined, but unmistakably the woman from the faded photograph I'd found tucked in the back of the journal. Isabel. She was 22 years older, her hair streaked with gray, her eyes hollow with a lifetime of fear, but she was alive. And sitting at a small table next to her, coloring in a book with a broken crayon, was a young man. He had David's eyes, my husband's eyes. The world stopped. Isabel looked up, shielding her eyes from the light. There was no surprise in her gaze, only a weary, bottomless resignation. "Clara," she said, her voice raspy from disuse. "He told me you'd never come." I couldn't speak. I couldn't breathe. I just stood there, gripping the doorframe, my mind refusing to process the scene in front of me. "He comes every week," she continued, her voice a monotone. "Brings us food, supplies. He told me if I ever tried to leave, he would tell the police I was insane, that I'd kidnapped our son, that he would have me locked away forever and take Gabriel from me." She looked at the young man, her expression softening with a love that had survived 2 decades in a basement. I couldn't risk that, so I stayed. The truth was more horrifying than any ghost. David hadn't killed her. He had done something worse. He had erased her. He had built a prison within our home, and then, when that became too risky, he had moved her here, to this forgotten house. He had kept her like a secret collection, visiting his other family on his business trips. He had a son who had never seen the sun, never been to school, never had a friend. The vengeance I felt in that moment was a white-hot fire. It wasn't just for me. It was for Isabel, for the life she lost, for Gabriel, for the life he was never given. I didn't call the police. I called a reporter, a dogged investigative journalist I'd seen take down corrupt politicians. I gave her the whole story, the diary, the location. I gave her everything. The fallout was nuclear. David was arrested in his office, his perfect life exploding on the evening news. The story of the architect of horror was everywhere. Isabel and Gabriel were taken to a hospital, then to a safe house. The process of healing their broken minds and bodies would take a lifetime. My husband was charged with kidnapping, false imprisonment, and a dozen other crimes. He's in prison now, and he will be for a very, very long time. The house is empty. I sold it. I couldn't bear to live within those walls, knowing what had happened in the attic, knowing the truth that festered in the basement of that other house. The woman in the attic wasn't a ghost. She was a prisoner. And my husband wasn't just a liar, He was a jailer. He didn't just betray me, he destroyed 2 other lives to protect his own comfortable existence. I am sharing this story because Isabel and Gabriel deserve to have their truth told. They deserve to be more than David's dirty secret. And I am sharing it as a warning. The most dangerous secrets aren't the ones hidden in attics or basements. They are the ones hidden in plain sight behind the familiar face of the person you share your bed with. If you have listened to my story of vengeance, please let me know in the comments where you are listening from. I want to know how far our truth has traveled. And if you believe that no one should have to live in the shadows, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to the channel. Your witness gives our story power. Thank you for listening.